Hello. Shall we
Yes,
start with the
ma'am.
lecture now? Is everyone is there? Today you see we are seeing for the inlay. You know about the amalgam inlay preparation you are doing for the in the second year of the pandemic you are done also. Now what is the inlay, what is onlay, and what is the direct restoration? I think you all of you know that. Hmm? So today we are just going to see about the inlay. As name suggests itself, it is inlay, is the restoration which is fabricated outside, which is within the tooth surface. It is an inlay. So when you go for the inlay, that is a cast restoration. When we talk about inlay, that is a cast restoration, which is fabricated out of the oral cavity, then cemented in the prepared cavity. So you have to give a certain design to the cavity to withstand that tooth structure or withstand that restoration within the cavity. So what are the structures given? What are the features given? What are the principles followed? That we are going to see it in detail today. As you know, the principles of the biochemical principles of the cavity preparation, they are same as that of the cavity design for the amalgam. That is, what are they? That is the outline form. You must be knowing those cavity designs. You have just gone through that. That is the outline form, detention, resistance, and in the detail, what are the regulative features we have to give? What are the auxiliary specific features which are given for the inlays, and what are the modifications we have to do? That we are going to see in detail in today's lecture. So, as you know, usually the cast metal restoration, it is mainly made for the class 2 cavities. What is the class 2 cavity? The cavities which are on the proximal surfaces of the posterior teeth. For that, where the occlusal forces are very high and the strength of the material is very important, and that time cast metal restorations were selectively seen in that phase. So in this, how many steps we are taking? What are the material included? You know about the cast metal alloys. They gold alloys. They will be used in this for this restoration. So in this, mainly the laboratory work will be done. The cast restoration will be fabricated in the laboratory. Then that will be fixed into the oral cavity. So this definition, if you want, you can note down the definition. This is the fixed intracoronal restoration. As it is in, it will indicate fixed intracoronal restoration, or it is a restoration which is made outside of the tooth, which correspond to the prepared cavity, correspond to the form of the prepared cavity, which is then rooted into the tooth. This means inlay will be, as the cavity will be prepared, there will be some form is given to the cavity according to the restoration, intracoronal restoration, it will be fabricated, and then that will be the restoration, it will be rooted in the tooth, and this is the permanent restoration. So when you prepare for the class 2 inlay, you are involving occlusal and proximal surfaces of the posterior teeth. In this, you may cap one or more cusp, but not all the cusp. Because in the inlay, in the class 2 amalgam, we are not capping the cusp, but when the destruction is bigger, that time we have to go for the class 2 inlays. And here, what you are going to do, you are preparing the cavity, which is intracoronal restoration, which involves the occlusal and proximal surfaces of the posterior teeth, but it may cap one or more cusp, but not all the cusp. This is a very important point. It will not involve all the cusp. When the all the cusps are, when we are covering all the cusp, then it become the onlay. And onlay, what is the onlay? It is a onlay. It is a combination of the intracoronal and extracoronal cast restoration, which covers all the cusp. So there is only small difference in the definition. Both are intracoronal restoration. Here, only one or more cusp they are will be capped. But in this onlay, there is all the cusp will be covered. So you can see this diagram. This is the inlay. It is intracoronal restoration, and here, if required, you can involve one cusp or like that. But in the onlay, both the cusps are involved. So this is the onlay. So this restoration, the first one has fabricated with the cast restoration in the 1907. So what are the indications of this inlay? If you want, you can note down these points. That is what the large restoration, restoration of endodontically treated teeth, control over the contacts and contour, opposing cast metal restoration, space closure, correction of occlusion, and partially subgingival restorations. Yes, as you know, because as in the amalgam, we are not covering the customs. Whenever the large restoration come in the picture, because as the compressive strength and is higher of this material, so it is preferred. Whenever you require a large restoration, we will be going with the inlays or cast restoration. When the tooth is treated endodontically, as the tooth has already become the brittle, so that the covering, maximum covering is required. So this is the another restoration. This is the restoration of endodontically treated tooth. Then when it is difficult, whenever there is open contacts or whenever it is not possible to build up because destruction is more, both the proximal walls are destroyed and it will be difficult to build up those contacts with the amalgam by even by using the mattresses. In that condition, to control these contacts and contour, you can fabricate the restoration outside the oral cavity and you can build up the proper contact and contour with the proper bulk of the restoration. And as you know, galvanism is a problem. So if there is a opposite tooth has a cast metal restoration, you will need to restore the down tooth with cast restoration only. The dissimilar metal should not be there with the, and the antagonist tooth should not have the dissimilar metal. So as we require both the metals at the same side, so you will get the opposite cast metal restoration, you have to go with the cast restoration only. And whenever there are big spaces to be closed, as I was telling at the time of the contour or the contact and contours, the space closure is difficult with the direct filling materials, so that in that fabrication outside is preferred for the space closure. And whenever there is a required correction of the occlusion, that time you may need to cover some cusp or you need to exclude some cusp. So that time again you are using the cast restoration. And whenever the restorations or the caries spread is more towards the reticular side, means whenever it is below the gingival line, that is called as subgingival. So when your proximal box is coming below the subgingival restoration, that time it is easy to make them clean and finish the tooth properly to avoid the deposition of the plaque and tartar. So in that condition, whenever there is a subgingival restoration or partial subgingival restoration, the cast restoration is indicated. Then what are the contraindications? So whenever there is a high caries rate, because if there are the high caries rate, as this restoration is rooted in the oral cavity, so the spread of the caries will be more. In the young patient, it is contraindicated, and whenever there is aesthetic is the importance, that time this because these restorations are, but still the inlays, those who are with the composite inlays or ceramic inlays, they are coming up in the field nowadays with the to cover this aesthetic contraindication. If if you are going with the cast restoration or metal inlays, that time they will be contraindicated. And whenever there are small restoration, it is always preferred to do that with the direct restoration instead of going with indirect restoration. So what is the advantage of the this inlays? It has a good strength, as I told, because the metal has good compressive strength, so that it will preserve the tooth structure and longevity of the tooth is increased because of the strength of this material. and the biocompatibility of this material is more. It has a low wear, and it has a control over the contacts and contour. So this is the advantage of this type of restoration. Then what are the disadvantage? Because as this is first visit, you are doing the cavity preparation, taking the measurement, taking the pattern, then you are fabricating, and next visit, next appointment, you can fix it. So there are number of appointments are more. This is the disadvantage, and it is a technique sensitive because it is not done directly in the cavity. So you are taking the impression. So it is a technique sensitive, and cost will be little more than the direct restoration. Uh, then splitting forces, because if the restoration is too big and which is not covering your tooth structure completely, so as the compressive strength of the restoration is higher over the enamel and painting. So if there is a higher occlusal forces are coming, there is a chance of the tooth to get split out, because it will fracture the enamel instead of fracturing to the restoration. Huh? And in this, temporization is required. This is another disadvantage. So now you know about the indication, contraindication, advantage and disadvantage. So what exactly we need to go? Hmm? So mouth preparation prior to the restoration. So what the exact preparation you have to do before you start with the restoration is you have to control the plaque, as the hygiene maintenance is important with this restoration. You have to control the caries rate, you have to control the periodontal diseases, and anything is there. If the cavities are too deep, you need to have the proper base, proper foundation for the restoration to sit. If that is not there, you can't give the stable restoration at that place. Give the stable restoration, you should have the proper foundation. Then, whenever you require the control of the pulpal condition, you have to check the pulpal status to give the restoration. Before giving the restoration, you should know that, because as these are the metal restoration which will carry all the changes. So you should know the pulpal status of the of the tooth before you give the restoration. Then occlusal equilibrium, you have to check the occlusion properly before you give the restoration. Adjustment of the occlusion is the very important step. In this, all the premature and interfering contacts has to be eliminated. Diagnostic wax-up and temporary restoration, you should be ready. This mock-up work has to be done before you start your procedure. So in this, what are the armamentarium, what are the burrs required? So in this, we are taking the tapered round cylindrical is the 169, 171, 271, those burrs, and along with the flame shape burrs, we are using. Then you need the finishing stones, you need mirror, you need explorer and periodontal probe, chisels, hatchets, gingival marginal nut. You must be knowing these all hand instrument: chisel, hatchet, gingival marginal trimmer, excavators, and articulating film to adjust the occlusion. So whenever you are using this armamentarium, so hand instruments play a big role when you go with the cast restoration. So you should know those hand instruments. So you see these burrs, I was talking about 271, this is the 271 burr, this is 169, uh, this is a taper burr, this is a straight burr, and this is a flame shaped burr. So these burrs are, this flame shaped burr is used to give the bevel to the cloth. So these are the burr numbers: taper fissure, elongated and taper fissure. So to give the beginning bursts, so you should, because when you are doing the inlay, there are some burrs which is not the, if you see the cutting edge of this burr, end cutting will be, there will be no cutting at this end. So those burrs are preferred from profile beginning burrs, they are called as. They will be 1 millimeter in diameter. The placement of the bevels around all the external margins has to be prepared. point of burr, which is a non-cutting, so that the step will not be created. As I was saying, this is non-cutting end and it is used at the low speed. And there are different diameters of these burrs, that is 1, 1.6, 2 and 3 millimeter. And these are the finishing tips. These are the finishing tips which are used. They will be fluted. And these are the sandpaper discs which are used for the finishing. So there is wet grinding and finishing wall. So Arkansas stones are used to finish the boundaries. So these are the rubber points used for the abrasion. So now you know about the armamentarium, you know the basic concepts about the Inlay. So now you should know the concepts of the cavity design, because you should know what you are going to prepare. So the designing of the cavity is very important. As we know the design of the amalgam, here there are three basic things which you have to keep in your mind before you start with the Inlay. So what is the preparation path? Is how will be the insertion and how will be the removal. Then what are the tapers? Because to get this, you need to have the tapers in the inlet. So what the tapers you are using and what is the circumferential type. And all these three things will be asked in the Viva whenever they ask you for the question on the inlet. So what is the preparation path, what is the inlet error and what is the circumferential time? We are going to see in detail. So what is the preparation path? There should be a single path of insertion and there should be a same path should be for the removal, which is opposite to the direction of the occlusal loading. Whatever occlusal loading is there will be the path of removal will be opposite to the occlusal loading. And usually the path of insertion, it will be parallel to the long axis of the tube. The path of the insertion will be parallel to the long axis of the tube. This, while in the amalgam preparation, because usually the exam, the question will be asked to write the cavity, difference in the cavity preparation for the amalgam and inlay. So here in the inlay, the path of insertion, it is a parallel to the long axis of the tube and it will be tapering towards the pulpal fluid. You see, this is the taper what we are getting, this occlusal flow, and while in the amalgam it will be exactly reverse. You will get the undercut. The occlusal surface from the occlusal to pulpal, it will be divergent. Then what is the inlet taper? So now you know the path of insertion. Now you should know about the inlet taper. The path of insertion, it is a parallel to the long axis of the tube. But there are the inlet tapers are given. So what are these inlet tapers are given? So your preparation will be slightly divergent of the opposite walls intracoronally. There will be divergence of the opposite walls intracoronally. You are seeing that as I was telling. So towards the occlusal side it is wider than towards the center. Here you can see this. There is a slight convergence of the opposite wall extracoronally. There is a convergence. And because of this, once there is a taper, unobstructed removal of the wax pattern will be there. It will be easy to remove the pattern and put it back. The restoration. So that this taper will give the unobstructed removal of the wax pattern and sitting of the casting. So this is the inlet taper. So how much will be the inlet taper? This is again the Viva question usually asked. You should know it when you start with the preparation. So according to the student, 2 to 5 degree from the line of draw. It will be 2 to 5 degree from the line of draw. According to Charbino, it is 10 to 16 degree, and according to Marcozov, it is 2 to 5 degree. And in this, according to student, whenever the short vertical walls are there, it will be only 2 degree. If there are long vertical walls, then it will be more than 2 degree. And according to the Charbino, each wall he says that each wall should have the 5 to 8 degree of the taper. Means that much conversion you are doing. So what are the factors affecting the taper? Because as with this earlier thing, you can understand what are the factors, how you are deciding how much taper you have to do. So those factors are length of the preparation wall or axial surface. Longer the wall, greater will be the taper. If your wall is longer, then the taper will be greater. Surface involvement of the internal anatomy. So whenever there is a greater the surface involvement, more will be the taper, but it should never exceed more than the 10 degree. Means always your taper will be less than 10 degree in any consequences. And whenever you need more tension, and there will be less will be the taper. Because if you make the more taper in preparation, the restoration will not have the longevity. So whenever restoration is required, you have to make more parallel preparation than giving more taper. See, there are certain rules whenever you give the taper. So first rule says that whenever you make any taper, it should be done equally on the opposite walls, so that there will be only one path of insertion and one path of removal. And here the tapering can also be done only on one side. If you see, there is a tapering is done only on one side, but other wall is totally parallel. It is a straight, so that again the path of insertion is easy. But it should not be unequal. Means it should not be one has a more taper and other has a less taper. It should not be like that. And if whenever there are more carry spread, if the karyogenic and anatomical factors are there on the opposite wall, it will prefer to create the two planes. If you see, if there is a wide cavities are there, wide caries are there, in that you can keep the base as a perpendicular or parallel to each other. Later you can give the taper. So this will also give the longevity for the tooth structure. So once you know now the taper, you know the factors affecting the taper. Now what is the circumferential type? The marginal peripheries which are designed to create the most favorable relation between the casting and routing cement, which hold the restoration, which hold the casting. What the features you are giving are the circumferential type. Means the peripherally how you are holding the restoration. The peripheral margins anatomy of the preparation is called as circumferential type. This is the again another this one where you need the you need to have the Viva question, what is the circumferential type? So what are the features given for the this circumferential type? In that circumferential type, the enamel should be always supported with the enamel sound denting. Means whenever you think of the giving the feature, circumferential type, in this there are certain principles which are followed. Those are enamel should be always supported with the sound denting. Enamel rods should be forming the cavo surface margin, and they should be continuous with the sound denting. Enamel rods forming cavo surface margin should be covered by the restorative mat. Yeah, what happens, Shraddha? Any doubt? So whenever there
No,
are
ma'am.
enamel rods, so whenever the enamel rods are there, they should be covered with the restorative material. So whenever this is the main thing, what you do with this in this, your restoration is covering the tooth structure. So cover surface margins are always covered with the restoration. So angular, because and always we are giving bevel, that means your cover surface margins are angulars, and for them we are trimming them. So circumferential tie, it consists of two features. One is the occlusal or gingival bevel, and second one is facial and lingual flares. Two things are covered. One is occlusal and gingival bevel. Whatever beveling you are doing, beveling is given at the occlusal and gingival area, and other things will come as a facial and lingual flare. Whatever proximally you give, those are the facial and lingual flare. Those are also primary flare and secondary flare. So these, these flares, along with this occlusion, it will form the circumferential tag. So you know that this is the major feature of the circumferential tag. So next, so what are the bevels? In the next lecture, we will learn about the bevels. So what exactly bevel means, because this is the, again the short question. Sometimes they will ask you write about the inlay, definition of the inlay, indication, contraindication of inlay, and write about the bevels. So otherwise there will be short note on the bevel. Bevel is very important question which is commonly asked even in the Viva as well as in the theory exam. So what is this? What the bevel mean? The detail we will see like the time is going to finish. So it is the plane of the cavity wall or floor directed away from the cavity preparation. When that is a cavo surface margin, which is more towards the plane. What is the cavo surface? It is junction of the cavity and the external surface of the tooth. So these flexible extensions of the cavity preparation, allowing the inclusion of the surface defects, supplementary groove and other areas of the tooth structure. So what is the purpose of giving the bevel? It will cover all the defects, that will cover all the inclusion and surface defects of the tooth structure. So in the next lecture, we will see about the types of the bevel. Anybody has any doubt? Is it okay? Okay, thank you.